Hello everyone, I am Michele Tittler from the political organization Endracebasedlaw Law here in Canada. This is Gerry Gagnon,
hello again,
my political partner. Today's recording date is June 26, 2024. However, this particular story is from 2016. It's called Deconstructing the Aboriginal Industry, and it can be found where all of our feature stories are on endracebasedlaw.ca. Gerry's going to elaborate on that. So have a look at this photo because it's really interesting. It's a native wearing all of his lawyer gear on one side and his native outfit on the other side. And Gerry has a little story about this exact guy. So Gerry, hit it.
Okay, this particular post is based on excerpts from a book that Frances Widdowson and her partner Albert Howard researched and wrote. It was one of the first major works on the Aboriginal industry in Canada that outlined what this monster is and how it became to be. And Widdowson has since paid for books and articles like this with her job at Mount Royal University in Calgary. That's a whole other issue we'll cover at some other point.
Cancel culture.
How discriminatory the treatment towards her has been, strictly for her professional opinion. Something that used to be, something that didn't happen at Canadian universities until quite recently. Okay, so it starts with the Aboriginal industry favors segregation over integration, which really nails it. And I would point out here, the term, when we started, Indian industry was a term that was being used. But the Supreme Court expanded who Aboriginals are and also included things, a certain group of mixed race like the Métis, in who are now Aboriginals. So the category in the Constitution is Aboriginal. And so we started using, as Widdowson has, the term Aboriginal industry. The generally just dysfunctional character of Aboriginal community leadership and administration remains deeply entrenched because of the influence of an industry of lawyers, consultants, and other professionals that benefit from the status quo of native dependency. These opportunists encourage a culture of opposition to virtually any government attempt to improve Aboriginal conditions on the basis of entitlement for past injustices. They then, through their advocacy research, construct apologetics that justify Aboriginal isolation and marginalization. Canada spends billions on its native people, yet many Aboriginals remain plagued by poverty, addiction, and other social ills. Meanwhile, a handful of lawyers, band leaders, and chiefs prosper. One of the most pressing problems in Canada today is the terrible social conditions that exist in many Aboriginal communities. It is well known that the rates of poverty, substance abuse, and violence are much higher for the native population, and that health and educational levels remain far below the national average. Even more disturbing is the fact that the alarming statistics persist despite billions of dollars being spent on programs and services to alleviate these third world conditions. Why has so much government funding had so little impact? In 1994, Widdowson and Howard decided to try and provide some answers to these perplexing questions. The result is, quote, the book entitled Disrobing the Aboriginal Industry, The Deception Behind Indigenous Cultural Preservation. A book that combines their experiences with 10 years of additional research to investigate all aspects of Aboriginal policy. It shows that the reason for the massive policy failure is that the current initiatives are being formulated and implemented by a self-serving industry that works behind the scenes in Aboriginal organizations. Legal firms masterminding the residential school settlement and anthropologists directing traditional knowledge studies, for example, have received hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. Some in this group of non-Aboriginal lawyers and consultants have little incentive to solve Aboriginal problems because they thrive on the continuation of Aboriginal dependency and social dysfunction. The reality of the Aboriginal industry is that grievances result in the dispersal of government funds, and so its members benefit from perpetuating rather than alleviating Aboriginal deprivation. The Aboriginal industry maintains this state of affairs in part by advocating cultural traditionalism in the native population. No rational person believes that modern problems can be solved by reverting to the ways of our ancestors, as is assumed in Aboriginal policy development. This does not mean that we are prevented from appreciating historical accomplishments, only that we are not obligated to accept all past beliefs and practices under the guise of preserving our culture, unquote. Valuing the plays of Shakespeare, for example, does not mean that we have to embrace the divine right of kings, bloodletting, or burning witches at the stake. Aboriginal cultural features, however, are perceived as inexorable. It is assumed, for example, that since Aboriginal peoples were once hunters and gatherers, they should continue to hunt and trap and gather berries so as to preserve their spiritual relationship to the land. Aboriginal languages that are spoken only by a few hundred people should be taught in the elementary grades, we are told, so that Aboriginal worldviews can continue to find expression. This is not to deny that Aboriginal people, like all Canadians, should have the right to pursue the beliefs and cultural practices that give them satisfaction. It is only to stress that this is a choice for individuals to make. The idea that Aboriginal peoples are natural hunters, or that they have a predetermined spirituality, is actually a form of racial stereotyping that constrains future possibilities. Aboriginal people, like all other Canadians, can think for themselves. Unproductive economic practices, tribal forms of political organization, superstitious healing initiatives, pre-literate languages, and unscientific forms of knowledge are also encouraged because of the condescending assumption that this will raise Aboriginal self-esteem and give Native people the confidence to participate in modern society. But such initiatives will not provide Aboriginal people with the skills, knowledge, and discipline needed to participate in a wide range of socially necessary occupations. Native studies programs in Canadian universities, for example, teach that the myth that Aboriginal peoples were placed in North America, Turtle Island, by the Creator is just as valid as scientific theories about human migrations out of Africa. But if Aboriginal people are not encouraged to approach this myth critically, as occurs with respect to, say, Christian myths such as Genesis, how will Aboriginal people become contributors to the fields of archaeology, paleontology, and biology? The blanket promotion of Aboriginal worldviews and ways of life, therefore, can rationalize Aboriginal isolation. Recognizing the need for Aboriginal people to participate in Canadian society, instead of being warehoused on unviable reserves, does not constitute a proposal for assimilation.
Warehouse, that's great.
Rather, it is a plea for integration, whereby many aspects of Aboriginal culture, humor, artistic sensibilities, non-coercive and ineffective forms of child rearing, and so on, will become part of the wider culture. At the same time, however, integration recognizes that certain aspects of Aboriginal culture are inhibiting Aboriginal survival today. And these characteristics, as well as unviable Aboriginal reserves and remote communities, should be allowed to gradually wither away, according to the decline in their expedience. The Aboriginal industry, however, favors segregation over integration. In order to prevent the recognition of this socially destructive policy direction, the Aboriginal industry has developed some very effective tactics over the last 40 years. It viciously attacks the credibility of opponents, arguing that criticism of Aboriginal policy is to denigrate Aboriginal people themselves.
It's racist.
Racist, colonialist, and right-wing are the most common insults hurled at those who dare to question the viability and effectiveness of land claims and self-government initiatives.
It's their weapon.
Recently, organizations like the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs have even argued that critics like us are guilty of, quote, inciting hate, unquote. And some members of the Canadian Political Science Association have asked if Widdowson and Howard should be charged under the criminal code. As a result of these tactics, most people who are uncomfortable with the obviously unworkable and irrational character of Aboriginal policy are discouraged from raising their concerns publicly. Because the negotiation of land claims and self-government agreements occurs behind closed doors or in remote areas of Canada, most people are unaware of the machinations driving current Aboriginal policy initiatives. They assume that because a number of Aboriginal leaders are supportive of the existing policy direction, this must be what most Aboriginal people want. These leaders have been corrupted by the financial rewards offered by the Aboriginal industry and therefore are completely unrepresentative of the interests of their people. In fact, these leaders remain in positions of power because of Native segregation and marginalization. Many Native leaders are anxious to build an economic base in their unviable communities because the Aboriginal industry ensures that the leadership will profit from these initiatives. Native leaders obtain a range of benefits, from honoraria to sinecures as members on the boards of the organizations that are set up to administer the transfer of funds and provision of services. The Aboriginal industry also needs the leadership to legitimate its proposals and ensure that community members are brought on side. The latter acquiesce under the misguided assumption that they will benefit. Although more and more reserve Aboriginals realize the folly in all of that. The fundamental needs of Indigenous people are common to everyone in the modern period: education, healthcare, and housing. Provision of these services should be considered an obligation and delivered with the consideration of the specific needs of Aboriginal people. Although this proposal for reasserting government control over the delivery of programs and services to the Native population will be interpreted by some as colonialism, no advocate for social justice is opposed to publicly funded education or health care for other Canadian citizens. In fact, the opposition is to offloading and contracting out, a circumstance that comes very close to what is actually occurring in Aboriginal communities, with the resulting poor quality of care and low educational standards. It is necessary for the current forms of cultural indoctrination that pass for education in Native communities to be replaced by programs designed to address the failure of the system to provide education at the level enjoyed by other Canadians. While housing in Canada is generated in the private sector according to profit motivation, Native community housing is government funded. However, the delivery is through housing boards, which have as their primary function Native board control.
This is where it gets good.
This means that traditional customs determine distribution of housing, and leadership administers building contracts. The result is that relatives and favored friends are allocated houses before those in direct need, and building contracts are awarded to Native shadow companies that profit by subcontracting to outside construction firms, while the chief and council take a cut. These firms are then held up as example of successful Aboriginal businesses. Exposing these deplorable circumstances in disrobing the Aboriginal industry has resulted in a polarized reaction. Some have heralded it as a courageous and truthful book, while others have either misrepresented its contents or attacked us personally. Although responding to the personal attacks has been an emotional strain, like it was with us in the beginning of this project, and the hate crime allegation is disconcerting, we have come to realize that this is an inevitable process that we have to go through in order for real debate to take place about Aboriginal policy in this country. Intimidation and smear tactics may have worked in the past, but they are beginning to wear thin.
They don't work with me at all.
Now that it has been exposed that the Emperor has no clothes,
The Emperor has no clothes.
his nudity cannot be denied indefinitely.
That is brilliant. She ends with that. That is brilliant. I have not read this for a very long time, since Gerry first put it up in 2016, and she ends with the Emperor has no clothes. That's absolutely brilliant. Well done. That was gorgeous. Well done. You're a great reader.
She deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah,
she is also
brilliant.
on X, formerly known as Twitter, Widowson. The spelling, well, you can get it from our post. There are links to the book and reviews of the book. And
Thank you, Frances Widowson.
comments
Well
from
done.
Canadians about
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah.
And I would encourage that you support her in her battle with Mount Royal over this,
I mean, they took her career.
yes, this punishment she's received for trying to tell the truth
Yeah.
and trying to help this situation progress.
And Gerry and I, when we started endrace-based law, one of the things I understood immediately is they're going to try to go after our jobs, and they did with you. You wouldn't believe what we went through. You just simply wouldn't believe. They tried to charge us with hate crimes. We had death threats. They contacted our family. They harassed my family while my mom was dying of cancer. I mean, that's the CBC story. You just can't believe what they did to us. But we knew that we weren't, like, I had trouble in the film industry. I did lose my job on that show. I was working on Arctic Air. But we just knew this was the most important subject in all of Canada, and we've lost a lot. We've been through a lot, haven't we? And I'm telling you, it got so bad that Gerry got really, really sick, and he literally almost died. And so we're back now, and we're proud to be doing this again, and we're really proud because we want unity for Canada, and we want the Natives to come along, and any Natives that are listening to us who are being screwed by their chiefs and this whole system, come on, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go, all of us together. Where we go one, we go all.
Let's gang up on them.
Yeah, let's gang up on them. They're making a lot of money, and none of you are getting it. None of us are getting it. It's coming from us, and it's causing us all to fight. And no, that we can do way better than this. Way better than this, and so can the Natives. So can the Natives.
Okay, so thanks once again for spending some time with us. We appreciate it. We know everybody has busy lives.
Yeah.
And we've tried to keep these as short and concise as possible. The posts are much longer if you're interested in more information on any of these topics.
Featured stories are on endracebasedlaw.com, and then the daily stories are on endracebasedlaw.ca, and we're going to be doing question answer periods with all of you too. We're just trying to catch up on all the stories, and we want to get Canadians involved, and we want to remove Section 35 of the Constitution, and ultimately we want to rewrite the Constitution. But that's for another day. More and more coming, and thank you for watching. And again, Frances Widowson, wow, she's a great writer. It's been a while since I read her stuff. Well done, well done. Cheerio, everybody.
Bye-bye.